Hey guys, welcome to Knockers on the Bottom. I'm your host, Jay Miller if you like. So, doesn't look like there's much in the way of practice today, probably with the scrimmage going forward tomorrow with the Rams. But I just wanted to still hop on, chat with you guys, let you know what's kind of going on with the team. So, it looks like the Cowboys signed two linebackers and one defensive tackle today. I kind of feel that these guys are mostly camp bodies, especially with some preseason games coming up. Eric Kendricks has been dealing with a little bit of a back. Demarion Overshone is coming back from a torn ACL. So I don't know if the Cowboys necessarily want to go into a preseason game where they're probably going to hold Kendricks out. And I would imagine that maybe we'll see some of Overshone in the first preseason game, but it's not going to be as much as if he was a completely healthy, non-injured, designated, returning second-year player still looking to get some reps, right? So if last year he was completely healthy, and this year they're saying, hey, we need to get you some more reps, kind of continue to learn the game, I would imagine we would see him play pretty much an entire half in the first preseason game. But we might see him play a handful of snaps in the first quarter, kind of get his feet wet, and then they're probably going to pull him out and try to make sure he gets out of there, without any serious injuries. So you're going to see some of Damone Clark now. Damone's going into his third year, so kind of a similar situation. You don't want to really throw Damone Clark out there for 3/4 of the game. So I have a feeling because they signed two linebackers. Damian Wilson is also a veteran. I know they're going to throw him out there as well, and I know you're going to see probably both the Johnsons. Buddy Johnson and Jason Johnson. And then you're also going to see Maris Leafau, but that might be your starting trio, come second quarter. So they needed to add a couple of more bodies here just to kind of get through that third and fourth quarter with them, probably going to hold out some people. You want to make sure that you have enough, especially in Mike Zimmer's defense, if they want to get some good work and some good looks. He likes to play three linebackers a lot. And so going into that first preseason game, down a couple of guys or really kind of keeping a close eye on a couple of guys, makes sense that they would sign them, ramp them up here for the next few days with practices against the Rams, and then probably like a walkthrough before the game, and then kind of go into it and let them loose. Same thing with defensive tackle. Mozzie Smith is coming off of shoulder surgery during the offseason. Now he's been a pretty much a full go every practice, and he's had some, I feel, more good days than bad days. But on top of that, you have behind him Justin Rogers, who's a rookie, Darnell Daxon, Carl Davis. Carl Davis is a veteran, so I think he's going to play. But they just wanted to add one more body to there as well, and I think a lot of times the in this preseason we'll see because of the little bit of depth at three technique. So our starting three technique is Osa Digizua, and then backing him up is probably Golston at this point, and your third guy off the bench is probably Fahoko. I don't think we'll see Osa in the game at all, so we'll probably be starting Golston, and then after Golston comes out, you'll probably have Junior going there a little bit, but they needed another body. So the gentleman that they signed is more of a three technique than a one technique. He's 305 pounds. He's 6'3", so he's got some decent size to him. But I feel like they're going to be playing, those defensive tackles basically interchangeable, right? Mozzie will probably get the first crack at it when he comes off. It'll probably be Carl Davis, and then after that they'll rotate in Rogers, Daxon, and the new guy, but some of those guys won't just be playing one technique. They'll also line up to play three technique just to give the defense a little bit of a look and make sure that you have enough defensive tackles in there. Very similar to the linebacker situation. No big names. Of course, that's how it goes at the Cowboys. So I didn't expect anything less. The only way they were really going to get a name in here was flipping a draft pick for proven commodity. But at this point, when teams are in training camp and everybody's kind of looking at their roster and trying to see what they have, the price on those things could be a little bit high, and it's probably best to just kind of let it all shake out, wait for cut downs, and then see if there's anybody there of value that you can add to your room. So I also wanted to shift gears. 'Cause I've been telling you guys I was going to take a look at some of the running back depth across the league and see, what kind of guys will be out there at the end of camp that the Cowboys might be able to either flip a pick or claim and grab. So a couple of them stood out. One, the one I like the most is Khalil Herbert from the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears spent another draft pick on a running back. They have a couple of more in there. They have a couple of guys that they like. And Khalil Herbert seems to be the odd man out in the rotation. Doesn't mean they're going to cut him. They might keep him at the end of camp, but he doesn't look like he's going to get many carries. And he's also, he's coming off an injury as well. So they're probably kind of looking to bury him on the depth chart a little bit and use some other guys. Khalil Herbert, the reason why I like him the most is because to me, he's always been a playmaker. From the moment he stepped into the NFL, dude has always made plays. Dude has also always gotten injured. But I do feel in the rotation that we have, the way we would use him, he wouldn't be tasked with having so many carries. He'd kind of be your Tony Pollard guy, right? He'd come in, he'd be your change of pace, after all the thumpers are done thumping and kind of give you a smidge of juice. Now, the guy has only got about 4.54 speed, which honestly, for the running back position, that's about what most of your, daily starters in the NFL, that's about what they have. You do have your outliers. You have, Achane, who's actually not even really a starter there. You have Mostert. Those guys are like 4.3 guys. Those are the freaking blazing speed. But most of the running backs in the NFL that are, your top performers are right in that late 4.4 range. So maybe like 4.48, 4.49 to about your 4.6 range. So 4.54 speed from the running back position doesn't necessarily mean that he can't fly and he can't provide juice. One of the other things about him, too, is that he plays a little bit faster than his timed speed. If you watch Khalil Herbert, man, when he makes people miss and he gets into the open field, he's a hard guy to kind of stop. It's not necessarily a power thing. It's more of an elusive thing. And I think that's something that the Cowboys are missing, the elusiveness in the running back room. They got plenty of power. They got plenty of guys that if, you don't wrap up well, will run through those tackles and get an extra 2 or 3 yards. What they don't have, is that elusive guy that if he makes someone at the second or third level miss, he can take it an extra 30 yards, 40 yards, maybe even to the house. Khalil Herbert would provide some of that for the Dallas Cowboys. My second pick, the one I like the second most, is Jeff Wilson Jr. He's on the Miami Dolphins. He would probably be their fourth, maybe their fifth running back going into this season because they have Mostert. He's not going anywhere. They got Achane. He's not going anywhere. And then they surprised everybody in the draft by taking Jalen Wright. It was like, dude, you got two blazing fast running backs. You don't need a third. But from some of the reports that I hear and from some of the people around the league, when it comes to offenses, that are a little closer to the thing than I am, they tell me that, hey, man, the reason you take a Jalen Wright is so that if Mostert goes down or Achane goes down, which is what happened last year for Miami, Achane went down, and then Jeff Wilson Jr. became their second back. But Miami loves speed. They love to run with speed. If you look at their receivers, if you look at their running backs, they want speed. So looking at it that way, if one of those guys goes down, Achane, Mostert, and Jalen Wright has to step in, he's another one, speed. So their offense doesn't necessarily change that much by throwing Jalen Wright in if one of those guys goes down. So I think that was kind of the thinking with taking him as a draft pick. They didn't want to run into a scenario last year how they lost Achane after he went nuts for like 2 or 3 weeks in a row. He hurt himself. And then the rushing part of their offense, while Mostert still ended up with 20 touchdowns and he was freaking amazing, he is 30 years old. And so they were like, hey, man, if we have a Jalen Wright in there and Achane goes down, he automatically jumps into that RB2 role and he can kind of keep the train going. So that, to me, leaves Jeff Wilson Jr. as the odd man out. He's another one that's in that 4.5 range. I think he's like a 4.51, 4.52. So while not bad speed at all, of course it's much different than some of those 4.3 guys, legit track stars that Miami has. So again, he's another one that would provide something to the Dallas Cowboys running back room that they don't have right now, elusiveness. And Jeff Wilson Jr. also has a little bit of power as well. I know when he was in San Francisco, he dealt with some injuries, but now, we flip a pick for him. Again, it will be a similar thing. Like, he'll be that Tony Pollard, that change of pace guys that we don't have that can provide just a little bit of elusiveness in the running back room. So that's my number 2. My number 3 would be Miles Sanders. I know he's a former Philadelphia Eagle. It always pains my heart if the Cowboys were to have an Eagle on their team. But he's in Carolina right now. They just drafted Jalen Brooks, and they have Chuba Hubbard, who are going to be the top 2 guys on their depth chart. So he's already down the line a little bit. Now, this one might be a little bit trickier than the first 2. I feel like the Cowboys could go get Khalil Herbert or Jeff Wilson Jr. pretty easily. If they wanted, maybe around a 7th round pick, something like that would probably get the deal done. Maybe 6th round if Miami really wants to hold him hostage, or Chicago really wants to hold him hostage. But I don't think so. I think Chicago wants to see Khalil Herbert go. I don't think Miami necessarily wants to see Jeff Wilson Jr. go, but he doesn't fit the mold of all the other running backs that they have on there. And it's not like he doesn't fit in such an extreme way that it makes sense for him to stay. So if he didn't fit, but he was a 6'4", 235-pound back, somebody that can grind out those 3rd and 1s, it would be a little bit harder to get him because he's got something that the other running backs don't. But he's kind of like that tweener. He's not quite big enough to be a power back, but he's not quite fast enough to be a speed back. So he's kind of in the middle. But for us, he would fit something that we don't have on the roster. But Miles Sanders, he's, kind of got a bad contract, I would say, for a running back when it came to that year. He signed that deal, and then he kind of just, and if the Cowboys traded for him, Carolina would still be on the hook for most of that deal. Cowboys would have to pay a portion, but Carolina would pay most of it. So salary cap-wise, it works. But Miles Sanders, the reason why it might be a little bit more difficult is because Jalen Brooks is coming into the NFL with an injury. So, I know Carolina might look at it a little bit and say maybe we want to hold on to a veteran guy that, is only in the 2nd year of a 3-year deal, just until Jalen Brooks, shows that he's fully back from this injury, and then we'll be able to move on. So if we're looking at the Miles Sanders one, which is my 3rd one, that would probably be something that would happen closer to, or maybe after a couple of weeks into the season, which might not be so good for the Cowboys, because by the time that happens, I mean, the way our schedule opens up, it could be some trouble. So, but just wanted to chat with you guys about that. I told you I would cover some of that, so just wanted to make sure that I did. Thank you for tuning in. If you like it, hit the like button on the video, subscribe so you get some alerts when I come on. If there's anything that you want me to cover, drop it in the comments below. Also soon, I'll also be putting an email up. It's probably going to be something simple, but yeah, just similar to the name of the show, just so that you guys, if you don't want to put it in the comments below, you can always email me, and I'll put, some questions together or some answers together for your questions in sort of a mailbag format for an episode. But thank you for tuning in. This has been Knockers on the Bottom. I'm your host, Jay Miller if you like. Peace.